Hello, fight fans. Welcome to the Combat Challenge podcast. Today's guest is a UFC light heavyweight fighter with an impressive record of 11 wins and only 3 defeats. Out of those 11 wins, there is only one fight that reached the judge's decision. Mr. MODESTAS, the Baltic Gladiator, Bukauskas. My brother, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, mate, thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure.
No, man, the pleasure's mine, my friend. Thank you for coming on. I know you got a busy schedule. I know you got things in the pipeline, which we'll talk about as we go through this podcast. The first thing I want to ask you, my friend, is the fight name. And I ask a lot of the fighters who have fight names, if you could talk myself and the viewers through how this fight name came about.
Well, it sort of came about by accident, to be honest with you. I felt like for the longest time I was thinking to myself, oh, what can I have as like a nickname? But I'd even ask on my Instagram, ask people like questions like, what's a good name for me? And I'll get thrown about like good ideas here and there, but like I was like, none of them like really stick out for me. None of them are. I like something to be authentic, something to describe me that's completely different to anyone else's. So it was actually a Lithuanian guy who was doing like posters and stuff like that. And he's like an avid MMA fan. And obviously me being the first Lithuanian born athlete in the UFC, they got obviously well behind it and everything. Started making like little artwork. And then there was one picture that I put up with my top off, obviously, because, that's all I pretty much do on Instagram. got a flex for the fans, eh? There was one picture and then he put like a caption. So he made like a little edit and he put a caption and he said, "This is the Gladiator from the Baltic States." And I thought, do you know what? That actually is quite good. That sounds like has a nice little ring to it. So I just, ever since then, I was like, Baltic Gladiator. I'm like, that sounds sick. And the reason why it's the Baltic Gladiator, because, some people like ask me, oh, well, Baltic means cold. So why are you the cold gladiator? But in reality, it's to indicate the Baltic states, which are basically by the Baltic Sea. So obviously Lithuania, Latvia and stuff like that. So all Estonia, the countries on that sort of region. So it's not only representing my own country, Lithuania, but obviously all the other states along that particular region. And then Gladiator, because I just keep coming, man. I just keep coming. So, and I like to entertain people. I think that's something that I've grew up, that I've really sort of has gotten better over time. Like before I used to be like really shy, but then I've sort of grown out into, wanting to be that entertainer and to, show out for everyone. So yeah. And I do that the best with my fighting skills. So that's how the name came about.
Awesome, man. You mentioned on there that, you look for suggestions and you put it out on Instagram. It's interesting you say that because the name for the YouTube channel, Combat Challenge, came about from me asking people on social platforms, because I had loads of different names, but you need to feel some sort of affiliation to it.
100%.
And that's how this came about. And, somebody just says something and you think, yeah, that's the one that I want.
Yeah. You find the connection, you find the one that really reflects against you the best. Yeah, no doubt.
One of the things I ask from athletes is to know a little bit about their MMA journey from a young age, what sort of disciplines they got into and how they ended up where they are today. If you can talk us through that for us, please.
Yeah, so it's actually been quite a crazy journey. I've had, stints of when I've been like very serious and very dedicated to it, and then stints where I've had to sort of branch out and try other things and see, where my athleticism and my, sporting stuff like sort of went into. So I started off when I was about 5 years old. At the beginning, because my dad was an ex-Soviet Union no-holds-barred heavyweight champion. So obviously, he's got the roots back in the day, starting with Sambo and karate and stuff like that and mixing it together. And competing at a very high level before MMA was pretty much mainstream. So I was born in Lithuania. We moved here to London when I was 3 years old. And then, like I say, my dad knew all the techniques and everything. And, he just started off just showing it to me, me as a little kid, like, oh yeah, like, look how cool this kick is and stuff like that. And me thinking, oh yeah, this is fun, isn't it? And then literally probably, I reckon it mustn't have been like 2 or 3 weeks in. He goes, all right, son, now we train hard. I'm like, great, here we go then. Do you know what I mean? And then there's pretty much no way out. But I trained very seriously at the beginning, mainly with Sambo and kickboxing. And the first thing I started competing in was kickboxing. So pretty much ranging from 8 till about 14, I won 4 British kickboxing titles. And this was under my dad's tutelage. And, you know, of course, like doing all the submissions and stuff like that. So I pretty much learned like the very basic, like early stuff in MMA, started competing in combat jiu-jitsu competitions. And this was like all like at a very young age. You know, I guess obviously because I was sort of, I mean, I guess you could say forced into it, but I'm very grateful for it now. You know, like at the time when you're a kid, you don't really understand. Like, you know, when I'm upstairs, I'm playing my video games and my dad goes, right, we've got to do training in an hour. And I'm like literally sitting there crying. Like I'll literally be sitting crying before we'd have to go and train because I just didn't want to do it. But it sort of built up like, you know, like the determination, the dedication, and, you know, having that routine and you know, being disciplined and stuff like that. So I learned a hell of a lot of lessons, all you know, all from my dad, which I was very grateful for. I actually did judo alongside this training as well. My sort of biggest achievement there, I won a bronze medal at, which was called the Heart of England tournament, which was like an international tournament. So I got to, I think, a 3rd stripe. So this was when I was a junior. So a 3rd stripe blue belt in judo. So again, mixing in from the sambo and stuff like that definitely helped me with my judo. But in all fairness, I sort of, from about when I competed in kickboxing, it was almost like the first 2 titles was like very serious. So that was all I was focusing on. But because, you know, as a kid and like your parents, you know, they sort of want to see you do other things and try and branch out and see what other sports you're good at. You know, I started playing tennis, did that for a couple of years. And then I started playing basketball. So realistically, it was quite weird because the whole time I was playing other sports and wasn't doing martial arts seriously, but it's where martial arts is where I was getting all the medals and the trophies and stuff like that. So, you know, some people often question me like, oh, why are you playing tennis or why are you doing this when you're winning all the medals over here? But like I say, I think it was almost like a mental like break. You know, you had so many years being dedicated and committed to that craft and being, like I say, a bit sort of forced into it. I needed like a bit of a hiatus in order to come back for the love of it again. I went and played basketball from when I was about 12. And then when I was 16, I ended up going to America to not only study out there, but to play basketball on the team. It was my goal to try and get a Division I scholarship. So at that time, that was my full focus, was trying to, you know, obviously get to the NBA and stuff like that, or, you know, play professionally. That didn't happen for me. You know, I had a couple of like, you know, lower league division schools, like, you know, scouting, but nothing really solidified. And then at about 18 years old, I came back home, and then already as soon as, and I also played American football. That's another thing I wanted to say. So I played American football, played basketball and stuff like that. So, you know, I was trying to become like a multi-talented sort of athlete. And luckily in America, their system of training is top notch. Like they have NFL coaches coming to train you when you're only 15, 16 years old. Guys like power cleaning 100 kgs. It's mad. So this is why America, they're, you know, leading in the sports world, because they train people from an early age. But yeah, when I finished everything and like literally I had about 2 months left before I was going to come home when I was 18, I was on the phone with my dad like quite a lot because I went out to America obviously on my own. Yeah, the conversation came about. My dad was like, listen, why don't you get back into MMA? Why don't you, you know, this is your last chance really to become a professional athlete, because that's always been my goal. That's been my main thing. Like one of my dreams as a kid is I want to be a professional athlete. And that was my last chance to become a professional athlete in terms of any sport that I saw that I could go and do. So then, yeah, as soon as I was 18, came back home, started training with my dad, and pretty much again just back into the same mix of things. You know, he had his gym and stuff like that. So again, training my sambo, my jiu-jitsu, my striking, and just putting it all together. I had a couple of semi-pro fights over the course of 3 years. Had a record of 7-1, and then actually on the last fight that I should have had, on the day the guy didn't turn up. So that was kind of my segue into the professional ranks, because no one else wanted to fight me. So when I was 21, I turned pro, and then that's it, never looked back.
So it sounds like your dad had a big influence on your martial arts career, right?
Yeah, 100%. He's been a massive influence. He's like my guardian angel. You know, always trying to figure out ways for me to get better. He's like my number one critic, but he's always looking at ways for me to improve, to get better as a person, as an athlete, and always trying to stay with the times. And it's really helpful. And we've got such a great relationship that also helps. I know some father-son relationships in sport tend to go a bit sour, but with me and him, it's actually improved over the years as we sort of understand each other more and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been amazing. It's been amazing to have him for the whole journey, because without him, I wouldn't be where I'm at.
Well, it's like you're saying, now that you've got a bit older, you've realised that the times when you had to come off the games, it was because your pops had your best interest at heart and he wanted you to get somewhere, to be able to achieve to have some form of accomplishment, right?
And that's it. I didn't understand it at the time, but I understand now. And that's the thing. You got to look at long-term progression and long-term gains. It's like at short term, I was thinking, why the hell am I out here sweating my butt off when I could just be playing football with my friends or you know, playing on computer games. But now I'm seeing it like, well, everything that we've been done to that point has all paid off. So that's it. It was all worth it.
And from a young age, was UFC there? Was it on your radar? How old were you when you kind of got to know a little bit about this promotion, UFC?
So, to be honest, I sort of was. My dad was always around it, and like, but it was never like. I wouldn't say it was like my main interest. Like, I would always be like, you know, watching The Ultimate Fighter and stuff like that. I'd always watch it with my dad and stuff like that, but it was never like my main. I was always the sport that I was playing or the thing that I was doing was always my main focus. So anything around it, I was just entertained by it, but not necessarily, you know, sort of driven by it, I guess you could say. So, I mean, I remember watching like early type stuff in the UFC, but it only really vividly comes into mind realistically whenever I came back home when I was 18. When I was 18 and I came back home and I started, like I say, put my full focus into fighting, that's when I really became engulfed by it, and I started watching loads of fights and stuff like that. So, I mean, I always knew that MMA was there, but like it didn't really come to light to me until like a later stage.
You mentioned your dad as being a significant person in your martial arts journey. Is there any other coaches or mentors that have played a significant part whilst you've been on this journey?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think definitely one of them I've got to say is Denison Sutherland. He's been in my corner quite a couple of times. He's been a massive factor within my pro career, especially when I had those 2 losses, to be able to come back. You know, he's been a very close family friend, and he's given me such good advice, and we train together a lot. And you know, he's really helped me a lot. That's one main guy that I've got to say, you know, is like family. Another one is Paul Stain, actually. He's always been wanting to help out, and he's been, like I say, another very close family friend. See, with all the people that I train with or I get in contact with in terms of martial arts, I always get a very close connection with them. So he's definitely been a big help. He's been like a big brother to me. Danny Batten has been another amazing addition to my MMA journey, especially towards the second half of my career, and especially now teaching me certain things where I had holes in my game, which then helped me to get to the level where I need to be. So, you know, it was definitely good. And having all those training partners that I had, you know, and stuff like that. Another one is Terry Dixon, my boxing coach, who pretty much got me to bring a bit of aggression back in. And I'm training with him now, actually, in preparation for my next fight. And I'm going to keep training with him because, like I say, he's known me since I was 3 years old. And then, you know, he come back when I was like 23, and then, you know, start training me and stuff like that. And I started training with good boxers. So he's been a massive help as well. I mean, like I could name so many people, you know, like Raymond's another good coach. Hodger Gracie, I've trained. He's been a massive influence. Ed Ingemels as well has been a very close friend, has always been helping me out. I think I've always had certain coaches come to me at certain times at all different occasions as I've sort of been working my way up and stuff like that. And they've all played a massive contribution to making me the fighter that I am today. And inevitably, it's what's going to form a world championship team later on down the line. So I'm very grateful and happy that I have those people around me, because not only are they my like really good friends, I get along with them, but they can also help me to up my game, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, for sure. Because now that you're at this Premiership level, you need to surround yourself with the right people who will give you the guidance, but also be able to tell you when things aren't right, and just kind of say, look, you need to get this, you need to get on focus and get everything right. Because now you're at the level where it's Premiership and you're competing on UFC.
Should I start with how I got signed by the UFC?
Yeah, for sure.
So, well, realistically, so when I went on like quite a big run in Cage Warriors, I think I won like 5 fights in a row with Cage Warriors. It was really 2019 that was my breakthrough year. I think I won Breakthrough Fight of the Year for that year on a couple of different media outlets. But yeah, it started off, we basically asked Cage Warriors, like, we want some tougher, higher level opponents now. Like, we're not messing around. Like, I just won the Fight Star Championship belt, which they allowed me to have outside my contract because I was still on contract with them. And then when I won that belt, I said, listen, give me someone tough. I want to go out and prove myself. And they did so. They gave me one Marcin Wojciech. Couldn't have been a tougher opponent at the time for me to face. And yeah, it looked all, sort of doom and gloom, losing the first round. And then at the end of the second round, spinning back kick and win that fight. That was the first thing that got my name out there, because already that was a very high level opponent, which is what we wanted. The only way you're going to get noticed, you beat a high level opponent. So that was step one. Step two, they then offered me, because I'd won another 3 fights previously on Cage Warriors, they then 2 fights. They then said, listen, we want to offer you a shot at the title. And for me, this was like the pinnacle of the sport at that moment, was winning the Cage Warriors belt. Conor McGregor had done it in the past and this and that. So winning that belt was a very important thing, especially when I was a massive underdog. That got me more into the spotlight. After that, that was when I got with my manager, Jason House, with Iridium Sports Agency, best agency about. They're based in America. He's now in Las Vegas, actually. He was in California. But that was another big thing that helped me, that helped guide me, because after the Hamlet fight, they thought that there could be a possibility I'll get into the UFC after that. But then it came about that we were like, okay, we need to defend the title one more time. We need to make a little bit more of a solidify my place to try and get to the UFC. Won my defense with elbows. And then at the end of the year, it was like a shift of momentum. It was like, I was just training hard, working my butt off, but nothing on the end of it. Like as much as I'm a martial artist and I enjoy improving, I also like having a challenge or something put in front of me to work towards, to sort of be excited about. And I had nothing at that time. And then it got into the new year and I was just thinking, do you know what? I just got to keep training. I had to talk to my manager a couple of times just to try and calm myself down. And then with his advice, he said, listen, let's not sign for another fight in Cage Warriors just yet, because I was very eager to obviously want to fight again. He said, listen, just take your time, just relax, just keep training. We're going to have talks with the matchmakers, and then we'll see what happens. And then I think this was like on the 6th of January or something like that. I'm waking up in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, to go for my mid-morning pee. Thinking nothing at all, just doing my thing, go to the toilet, go back to sleep. And then I see on my phone, I had like about 5 missed calls and like 2 messages saying, can you speak urgently? And this was by my manager. At this point, I had no idea. Like I literally just thought, what could he be? Maybe it's a sponsorship opportunity, or what could he possibly be calling me about? And then as soon as I called him, I said, he's going, hi, Modest, how you doing? I'm like, well, not too bad, a bit tired, but, 3 o'clock in the morning and that, I don't know why I got up at this time, but, I thought since I'm awake, I might as well call you. And he goes, how do you feel about fighting in the UFC? And then I was like, and at that point, I just didn't know what to say. I was like, wait, what? What was that you just said? He goes, how do you feel about fighting in the UFC, my brother? I was like, no way. Like I must have said like no way for like 4 or 5 times before it finally like sort of sunk in. They just said, we're going to send you the contracts through, and we're going to get this thing underway. And I was like, obviously at that point I was like, it was a sense of like I'd been working towards this like my whole life. So at the same time that I was shocked and I was like so happy, but I wasn't really surprised. Like I knew that this was what I wanted in my life. This is what I was working towards. I knew this was the logical next step. So as much as there was excitement and like, wow, I finally did it. I finally can tick off being in the UFC. That was one of my life's goals. At the same time, I'm like, well, now I'm here. Now I've got to really like step up my game and, go and show myself out to the world, because this is what I'm here for. So, and then I walked into the next room with my dad and I was like, I think again this is probably about 5 in the morning because I was literally just awake. I couldn't go back to sleep after that, and then I went to my dad's room, and he started waking up because he went to work out at crazy o'clock in the morning, and then I told him, Dad, guess what? He goes, what? And I'm like, we're in the UFC, baby. And then he just had like a massive, like, I swear he must have had a grin like a Cheshire cat for the whole, like, for ages after that. It was a pretty special moment for both me and him, and we just hugged it out. And it's like, and then already the first thing he said was, all right, well, now we've got to step up the training. That's it. Like, we're in the UFC. We've got to show them what we're all about. So yeah, absolutely amazing moment. And I was actually supposed to fight Vinicius Moreira, who's actually fighting tonight, funny enough. I was supposed to fight him in July in San Diego. That would have been my debut, but unfortunately, Corona, pandemic, and everything got pushed back. Everything got cancelled, and then obviously, then they found out the whole Fight Island thing, and then with that being in mind, that's when I had the fight rescheduled to. So I was supposed to fight in San Diego, and then everything got flipped the script, and then next thing you know, I'm fighting on Fight Island. So it was a pretty crazy turn of events and everything, but I'm very grateful. You know, I'm going to be making my American debut shortly, anyway. So. But it was just like a massive roller coaster. And then, funny enough, right before the Michalidis fight, probably about, I'd say 2 weeks out from the fight, they said that my opponent had pulled out because he had Corona. So I was supposed to fight Vinicius, and the next thing you know, two weeks before your debut, but then my manager goes, just sit tight, don't you worry, we'll get you another opponent. About a day later, they found Andreas Michalidis, and I think it's also funny how there was a media outlet that was saying who your 2019 regional fighter of the year is, and I ended up winning that. But there was 5 other fighters, and Andreas was actually also in the running for the regional fighter of the year. So both of us obviously having quite high credentials. Him winning emphatically in most of his fights. So obviously he was moving up from middleweight. He ended up actually weighing in a pound heavier than me, but yet he's in the weight class below naturally, which I thought was pretty crazy. And then that's it. Next thing you know, so all our preparation was made for Vinicius Moreira, but then pretty much nothing changed really when we went to fight Andreas. It's just I thought that we're probably going to have to strike more instead of grapple more, whereas it was a complete opposite sort of game plan. But this is why, you know, John Kavanagh says, like, you can be as prepared as you can for a fight, but you've got to be ready for things that may turn out differently. So, like I say, everything that we had done was already working towards any opponent. So we were happy with everything.
Okay, so and then the fight happens. Just talk us through the fight itself.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, most people do know, I think now, looking back at my pictures that I took like 2 days before the fight, I had bursitis on my knee. 2 weeks prior to the fight, my knee was massive. And I was like going crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, like, how am I going to fight? Because I couldn't put any pressure on it. Like, it was swollen badly. And then luckily my physio, shout out to Leanne, Distinct Physiotherapy, check her out. But yeah, she always gets me back to fighting shape, no matter what craziness I end up doing to myself. And then, luckily, you know, I follow the protocols, but literally the whole of fight week, I was just trying to ice my knee and do as much as I can. I was able to strike still, but could barely do any grappling, which was what my main focus was. The next thing you know, I couldn't do any of it. I could still do some of the wrestling drills, but I had to be careful not to touch it, because as soon as I touched it, it blew up again.
Really?
Yeah. Luckily, the UFC absolutely amazing. They take care of their athletes, like I say, to the highest degree. I think better than any other promoter. That's why they're the best promotion in the world. Had physios on deck, like, you know, sorting me out, giving me all the appropriate treatments and stuff like that. You could just book it in every day. And yeah, well, the whole time whilst I was doing media, I had this massive fat knee. And then next thing you know, I'll go into the fight, I also have a fat knee. So I could see that he was obviously targeting that. As you would, it's kill or be killed. So, you know, whatever advantage you can get over your opponent, you're going to take it, aren't you? So yeah, in the fight, you know, I think it started off. I've actually felt a lot more relaxed than what I normally do, which was good. It's what I needed in the fight. Like I wasn't as nervous. Like when Bruce Buffer calls your name, it just gets you pumped up, especially for the first time. So yeah, I was relying a lot more on movement and stuff like that. Obviously, there was a bit of nerves kicking in, so I don't feel like I was able to show everything that I had. But I was moving. I was like trying to land my shots and stuff like that. And he was kind of like backing away a lot and moving around as opposed to coming at me. So it's very hard for me to play my style against his. But you know, I landed some shots. Landed a couple of good things. He landed a couple of low kicks, and then yeah, then it ended up against the cage. And then next thing you know, I'm in a perfect position just to stuff the takedown. Okay, he's not going to take me down. That's fine. We'll go into the next round. We'll carry on. But then I hear my dad. Just all I hear, and every finishing sequence I had in my last like maybe 4 fights, it's always my dad screaming to me. Like for the Wojciech fight, he was like spinning back kick. For the Nasilia, elbows. And exactly the same here. There was like, I couldn't really barely recognize the 10-second clapper. My dad goes, elbows! Like he just goes mad. And then I'm like, oh, okay, he's in the perfect spot. Bang, bang, bang. And next thing you know, I'll go with elbows. And to me, every shot was clean. I'm landing right on the right spot that you need to. I was making sure that I was getting it on the right spot. Yeah, he may have turned his head, but that's his fault, not mine. Do you know what I mean? It's not my fault that he's then having to turn his head. I'm connecting to the spot. So, but yeah, then it got to the end of the round, so the bell actually went, and I thought, okay, I'm getting ready for the second round here. So I could see he was hurt, but I'm like, okay, I've hurt him a little bit for the second round. But then afterwards, like after about like a minute, like the referee was saying for him to get up, and he wasn't getting up. Like usually when the referee, you should stand up straight away. Even if you're like a little bit wobbly, you should go to your corner. He couldn't go to his corner at all. He ended up, they opened the cage door. He ended up sitting backwards to try and rest on the cage, but he fell backwards. And there was a massive fiasco about, why was the cage door open? Why did at the end of the day, you shouldn't be having to lean against the cage to be able to prepare yourself to go to the next round. If you're needing to lean against the cage, there's something clearly not right. And then at that point, the referee waved it off, and it was over. And it was like a sense of relief. I was like, yes, because I was like, I just won my UFC debut. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I've got to give massive credit, obviously, to Andreas. He is a very tough fighter, and I know he will come back and he'll go out and show out, especially at his true weight class in middleweight. I know he will do very well in the UFC. But yeah, it was just like sort of caked by controversy almost. So. And the thing is, there was really no room for there to be any controversy. I hit in the correct spots. If the referee was right there, yeah, from certain camera, but the referee saw it. He used in the first person view. He could see where those shots were landing. So he's the one who's going to be able to tell whether they were illegal or not. So if they were illegal, he would have said something. They weren't, so they weren't. So at the end of the day, he's the one that controls everything. So yeah, and then he waved off. He did everything he needed to do. So. And then afterwards, obviously, the amazing thing was winning the $50,000 bonus, which was another match. Yeah. Because I literally was sitting there after the fight having breakfast, just chilling out. And it's funny, I didn't want to like eat too much because I wanted to keep the abs going. Do you know what I mean? Like I was thinking, if I go out there on the buffet, what my abs going to be looking when I come back home? So I was kind of just being a bit like, cautious. Like, I think we might have had a shot or something just to celebrate or whatever it was. And then my manager was sitting at the table with me and he goes, "Oh, we got it, Modestas." I'm like, what do we get? He goes, "We got the $50,000. I was like, oh. And then, yeah, so that was quite an emphatic feeling. So yeah, it was an amazing debut. However, because of a bit of the controversy that people just stemmed towards it, I wasn't amazingly happy with my performance. I kept on looking back at it thinking, but then maybe that wasn't such a good performance and this and that. But then when I watched it again and again, I realized I did really well on my debut, and then that I shouldn't let people get in and say, because you're going to have haters. If you're doing something right, you're always going to have haters. So I realized that's just a good thing. That's a part of the game. And now I truly embrace that even now. Even if I have hate or anything like that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to show you different. So yeah, amazing experience.
Well, I watched the fight, and it's clear that you are connecting in the right place. And at one stage, maybe you didn't know at the time, but the referee, when he's telling him to get up, he's saying to him, "The elbows are good." Saying, "Look, there's no wrong with the elbows. You need to get up." And the referee has got that lad's best interest at heart, and he's got to say to him, look, there's only a bit of time, and if you can't get up, then there's going to be an issue. So the referee was initially saying, look, you need to get up, and then when he's seen him stumble back, that's the end of it. So I don't know what the issue was there. But did you hear at the time when the referee was saying, you know, the elbows are good, or were you just zoned out at that time?
Yeah, I was just getting ready for the second round. I heard him say the elbows are good, you need to get up. But I was like, I'm waiting in my corner, waiting for my cornermen to come through. And I realized that there was a bit of a lag time like before that. So I was just kind of just waiting. But I was fully expecting to go to the second round. And then, like I said, when he fell back and he went like this, then I knew it was over. I was actually kind of glad that it ended up ending in that round, because I mean, I went to do my interviews afterwards, my leg was like a balloon. So I'm actually quite like, because obviously because of the bursitis, it just expanded even more. So I'm actually kind of glad that I didn't have to have any rest time and go to another round, because obviously my knee was starting to feel the effects. But luckily that all healed up really quickly. It's almost like the kicks gave it a little bit of a knock in, you know what I mean? Gave it a bit of a head start, a little kick up the arse to say, come on, heal a bit faster now. So yeah, it all worked out really well.
Your second fight was against Jimmy Crute. If you can kind of talk to us a bit about that and how that played out.
Yeah, so it didn't play out the way that I wanted. Obviously, I'd visualize it going completely differently to how it went. It's funny because when I went into the fight and everything, like, you know, I still felt relaxed. I went to the cage, like everything was as normal. But I feel like I treated it as a bit too much like, oh, you know, I'm a sportsman, I'm here being an athlete and stuff like that, as opposed to you need to be a killer in there and stuff like that. And there's a couple of things like, you know, even before the fight, like my wraps weren't done right and like they were really pinching on my knuckle. I had to ask the officials to cut pieces of it because it was too tight on my knuckle. So already not saying that affected it at all, but I think, you know, maybe subconsciously that it's like, oh, what the hell's going on? Like, we need this to be perfect sort of thing, and like get the gloves done properly and stuff like that. But I mean, you know, like all the preparation went absolutely great. I had no injuries. I felt absolutely fine. You know, my cardio was good. I just didn't show up. You know, I took too long to get into the fight. I've definitely, you know, been notorious for starting slow, but in here you can't start slow. And it took me too long to figure out the rhythm of my opponent, that everything that was working for me in training wasn't working specifically for him, and I needed to adjust. I didn't adjust quick enough, and that's where Jimmy Crute, credit to him, amazing athlete. He did everything that he needed to do. He told me that he'd been working on certain things specifically for me, which was obviously just to slip and do the right hand. So he'd been watching my tape and watching my tendencies, and he just capitalized on that and came in with a perfect game plan. The one thing which I did do well, which was my focus in camp, was stopping takedowns, and I stopped the takedown, and especially at quite a late stage of the takedown where he probably could have easily took me down, but I had the right grips, I had the right base and stuff like that. So that was already one win for me. But the thing where I wasn't winning was on the striking, which is actually my best attribute, funny enough, which I wasn't able to show on the night. But look, sometimes in the chaos of it all, you know, you're not able to show out your best skill set. And I still feel like that even for my last 5 fights. It's like I can do so many great things, and I'm not putting it out there. And this is the thing. In prize fighting, you've got to be able to do it under the bright lights, not just, you know, in the training room and stuff like that. So I've made a couple of adjustments, you know, from that fight, but I'm very thankful for that fight because it's now told me what adjustments I need to make in order to go out and go towards the top and be at the top and win the title. It told me what things I need to do to change, and it's not drastic things. The skill set's not the main thing. It's just little tiny adjustments. Yeah, like I said, I'm very grateful. And you know, me and Jimmy are, funny enough, now fighting on the same card on UFC 260. So yeah, I can't wait for both of us to go out there and go and perform. And I'm sure at some point down the line we'll meet again.
You said your next one's on UFC 260. That's the Las Vegas card, where it's headlined by Miocic and Ngannou on the 27th of March. And you're fighting a lad called Michał Oleksiejczuk.
Oleksiejczuk, yeah.
Right. And he's got a record of 14 wins under his belt with only 4 defeats. What's your thoughts on that fight? What's your preparation? And hopefully, how do you predict that's going to go?
Yeah, so I've been just doing a couple of things just a little bit different. We're looking at a game plan a bit more seriously, like a bit more strategically. It's not just a case of just be a martial art through your skill set. It's now okay. We're going to look at particular tendencies, but then also having to be able to adapt. So I'm also improving my skill set. At the same time of obviously having a particular game plan and strategy for that opponent. So yeah, I mean, training's going really well 2 times a day. I mean, I had a knee surgery just before Christmas. Like a couple of weeks before Christmas, and I mean, I healed up really fast, a lot faster than what what everyone was saying, all the doctors expected me to heal up in. And obviously, just having a strong mindset and going towards your goal and stuff like that, and being positive, it just all helped. Your body just naturally reacts in that way to want to heal faster. So yeah, already from the 1st of January, got back to full training, and even then, I didn't even know I had a fight, and then just kept training hard. And then it took a couple of weeks, a week later, I got the call that I was going to have that fight. And then, it's just like I say, just tightening things up a little bit. All I can say is that I'm going to be bringing back an old school flair that I haven't brought back for a long time. And when I do, that's what's going to be the spectacular showing from me. It's bringing out something that is deep within me, that's been trained, that's been entrenched in me from such a young age, and now I'm going to bring it out in this fight. I feel like I've left it way too long to show myself properly, and this is the time to do it in emphatic fashion in Las Vegas on such a massive card with such amazing fights on that card. My first time, being in Vegas, and this is my chance now to get back into the top mix of the light heavyweight division with a big win over Oleg Sejchuk. Now, I've got to give my utmost respect to him, and he is a very tough competitor, very good, very very good athlete. Obviously, he wouldn't be where he is if he wasn't a good athlete. But I do predict that I will knock him out. Doesn't matter which round, but I feel I'll finish him. Whether it be the first, second, or third, I'm going to go in there and finish this guy. Without a doubt in my mind, that's what's going to happen.
One of the things I ask all the athletes that come on the podcast is, which of your fights was the most rewarding for you and why? Do you have a fight in mind that was the most rewarding, and why was it that way?
It would be a mix between, I'd say it's between 2 fights, but for different reasons. So the UFC debut against Michalidis was the most rewarding in terms of monetary gain. So I was able to help my family. That was my main thing. Like, I wrote on my board that I was going to give the bonus to my parents, and to finally be able to do that and to say, like, I've actually done what I said I was going to do on the board and everything, and to help them out, that's a massive thing for me. For me to help out my family is like one of my number one goals in life. So especially after so much effort and strain over the years that they've had with me and stuff like that, I just want to be able to give back. That's one of the greatest feelings, I think, in life, is to be able to give back to your loved ones, especially after they've entrusted you and invested so much in you. You just want to be able to give back. You want to, as much as they've been wanting to see your happy face, you want to see their happy face. So that was a big moment for me to be able to do that. So that was where the reward of monetary and financial gain was amazing. But in terms of my career as a whole, where I probably felt the most like surreal, is probably when I beat Hamlet for the Cage Warriors title, because I was a very, like, an extreme underdog. Like, I was not the guy that people wanted to win. On all the betting apps, I was heavy underdog. And then obviously I told all my friends, make sure you bet on me, I'm going to win you some money. And the next thing you know, the odds start shifting the other direction. I'm like, hold on a second, these people know something that we don't. It was like, I'd visualized it, and I'd seen it happen already like a million times before I even got to the fight. And then when it finally happened, I had the belt there. I even would visualize having the belt sitting next to me in my car, and then it actually happened. Like, it was just weird, and having it wrapped around my waist, I was just like, that's when I had to literally keep slapping myself and thinking, please tell me I'm not dreaming. This is really actually happening, because I knew that to get to the UFC, to make that dream come true, I needed to make this dream come true first, which was to be the Cage Warriors champion. And when I finally did that against a guy who was supposed to whoop me, no one even gave me a chance. They all thought I was supposed to just run the floor, if he was going to win, go to the UFC and this and that. And to finally just prove everyone wrong, and especially everyone else and stuff like that, it meant a lot to me. Like, emotionally and spiritually, it dug very deep to me, because I'm like, yeah, you geezers all thought that I was going to lose. You thought that I was going to be counted out. You didn't think my skill set was good enough. Well, F you. Do you know what I mean? I just showed you all that I am who I say I am, and that my skill set is very deserving of winning this belt. And you can't just beat me with wrestling. Try and beat me with wrestling and see what happens. So that was an amazing thing for me. And then just going to do all the interviews and stuff like that, and then walking into like all my home people. I must have had more than 100 people, and that was like I had quite a lot of people come down to the event, and to have them all standing there afterwards, like cheering me on, like me with the belt and everything. It was an amazing thing. Just seeing where I was just a couple of years ago to then, like working my way up, coming back from injury, being on from literally the bottom, like the worst place I could have possibly been in, mentally, physically, whatever you want to call it. Like so many bad things happened to me, and to finally get to the pinnacle of the sport at the time, it was amazing. And I know it's going to feel just the same way when I go and win the UFC world title, especially because I know people are going to keep doubting me all the way until that point. So I can't wait to keep competing and keep proving people wrong.
Well, I can tell just from you talking about it and reliving it, Modestas, how emotionally charged you're becoming just by talking about it, you know, and it must have been so rewarding for you, which is really great. I ask athletes to pass down some knowledge if they can. Now, on this MMA journey, you're on a conveyor belt, and now, fortunately for you, through all the hard work and effort that you put in and your pops has put in with you, you're in the Premier League of mixed martial arts. But there'll be other people on this journey, on this conveyor belt, that are just a little bit behind you. What sort of advice would you give them through your experience over the years that you've been in?
Yeah, I would say there's a couple of things. One of them is obviously keep winning. Make sure that you need a win streak. You need at least 6-5 impressive fights with all finishes. Like if you finish people and you're on a win streak, people are going to take notice. So if you make viral knockouts or, you know, amazing performance, people are going to talk about you. It's only amazing performances that are going to be talked about. So that's one thing I'd say, is train to go and finish people, because that's what you want to do. Obviously you can't go in and rush in crazy in fights, but you've got to make sure you're going in with the intention to go and finish people, because that's inevitably what's going to get you noticed in the first place. The second is choosing the correct promotion. Now, obviously, your first couple of fights, maybe 1, 2, 3 fights, like, you know, maybe for a bit of a lower promotion, you know, one that's not really like, you know, highly tutored as much. But at the same time, if you've got a massive amateur pedigree, so if you start early and you build up like 3-4 years, so don't rush with amateur, I'd say. Like take more time with amateur, build up like 10-15 fights, win load of, you know, go to the IMMAF championships. Like do these things because they're going to be seen in a high regard, and then that will give you more of a bargaining tool when you go to fight for these big promotions. You can go into and fight for places like Brave or whatever, these big promotions straight away, which will then help transfer you onto the big leagues. With that being said, when you do go pro and you do have a couple of fights under your belt, like, you know, maybe you're 3-0 or whatever, you've got to fight for the big promotions. You're not going to get noticed until, you know, again, you're winning impressively and you get signed by a big promotion like Cage Warriors, Brave in America. I think Titan FC is a big one. So you look at all the prominent promotions that have made champions who have then went on to the UFC. You need to be fighting for those particular promotions and winning in those promotions, winning championships, or, you know, just doing really well there, because then that's the guys who are like the feeders. Like Cage Warriors is the European feeder to the UFC, so it's the same thing with other promotions. They can feed you, and obviously if Dana White's keeping a close eye on these, especially ones on Fight Pass, it's going to just transfer over onto that. And with that being said, with all of these, like I say, all these things put together, the last missing ingredient is having an amazing manager. You know, it's having to really not rush with who you sign with, not to do it too early. I was very lucky because I had my dad and my head coach, who obviously was my first manager, got me all my fights, and then later on I then got a manager who then got me to the UFC. You need some more contacts. So, you know, once you get a couple of wins under your belt and then you want to get to a bigger promotion, you have to get noticed enough for people to want to come to you, I think, because you know, like, but obviously by all means reach out to people, and then, you know, if they like you and then they see, then obviously then you can create a good relationship. But Iridium Sports Agency, absolutely amazing. Obviously if you're working with them, you're going to get a straight line, as long as you keep performing to make all your dreams come true. So I'm very thankful for them. But it's having a really good management, who are then going to have the contacts needed. So if anything's like last minute, or, you know, they want to put you on a card, or they want to sign you or whatever, they'll have the bargain, another bit of a bargaining tool, as much as everything that I've mentioned. So win all your fights, make an impressive win streak with finishes, fight for a big promotion, and have a good management. You have those three things. And obviously, just work to be the most skilled MMA athlete you can be. Don't be one-sided. You've got to have the full package. You've got to at least be able to defend all certain things if one of the things is your strength, because obviously you haven't got time to, you know, do everything, that delve so deep into it. So have your main art as your strength, which will be striking or grappling, and then build around that, and then that will be your main thing. So all those things in mind, you'll definitely be on a sure way of doing well in the pro elite ranks.
Brother Modestas, thank you so much, not just for giving the time out to do this podcast, but more importantly, sharing your experience, but also your knowledge to up-and-coming fighters. Genuinely, I appreciate, and even for me, just listen to it, there's so much that I can take from what you're saying. It's been really cool, and I've really enjoyed it. And hopefully the plan will be, once you get the 260 win, and hopefully get a bonus again, so your pops will be happy. And then we'll meet up again, and we'll do our second podcast after that.
Yeah, sounds amazing, man. Like I say, thank you so much for having me on again. I've had a really good time. I had a great time chatting to you, and yeah, I can't wait for us to have another conversation down the line in the future.